Well, here's a little nightmare for some of you. Smartphones and laptops don't work anymore. There are no LED screens, high-speed internet, night vision goggles, industrial magnets, or MRI machines. The modern world as we knew it has ceased to exist, or it would without rare earth elements. Luckily, scientists just found out that a deposit in southern Norway is way bigger than we first thought. Now, rare earth elements are a group of 17 elements, with names like cerium, terbium, and promethium. The name sounds like they're very rare, but that's actually not true. We can find them almost everywhere in the Earth's crust. If you dug in your backyard, you'd probably find tiny traces of them. They're called rare because it's hard to find them in big enough amounts to mine and actually use. The real problem is not finding them. It's finding them in large enough quantities to use. Most of the time, they're spread out and mixed with other rocks, so you just can't dig them up and use them right away. Separating them is hard too. You need lots of processing, chemicals, and industrial equipment, which makes mining them very expensive. These elements are extremely important today. We use them in electric cars, batteries, phones, computers, MRI machines, wind turbines, and technologies like radar and night vision. No wonder the demand for them is growing fast. But new mines take a very long time to build, often 15 to 20 years from discovery to production, because of permits, testing, and construction. Now, back in 2024, the deposit in Norway was estimated to have about 8.8 million tons of rare earth material. That was already huge, one of the biggest in Europe. But they kept drilling and checking what's underground. And now, the new estimate came out in 2026, a whopping 15.9 million tons. That's almost double. It's like thinking you have one full warehouse and then realizing there's another one just as big right next to it. Now, they didn't guess this either. They drilled about 98,000 feet into the ground. That's roughly the height of 30 Burj Khalifas stacked on top of each other. Just in 2025 alone, they drilled another 33,000 feet. And finally, they've studied it enough to be pretty sure how much there is and where exactly it is. Until recently, the biggest rare earth deposit in Europe was in Sweden. A couple of years ago, it was estimated at about 1.3 million tons, and later updated to around 2.2 million tons. But Norway's deposit is on a completely different scale. Because of that, experts are starting to treat this site very differently. Before, it was just seen as a promising discovery. Now, it's considered a serious strategic resource. It's likely to play a big role in how Europe gets its key materials in the future. And that matters a lot, because right now, Europe doesn't really produce these materials on its own. In fact, most of the rare earths used in Europe are imported, mainly from China and some other countries. In 2024, about 95% of these materials came from abroad. So if Europe can develop this site in Norway, it might rely less on outside suppliers. Plus, instead of just mining the raw material and sending it somewhere else, they want to build a full local chain, from digging it out of the ground to making finished parts like magnets. That way, everything stays in one place, which is safer and more reliable. A big part of this deposit, about 19%, is made of two especially important elements, neodymium and praseodymium. These are used to make very strong magnets, the kind you need for high-performance machines. There's no real large-scale substitute for NdPr in this sort of magnet. If you want powerful and efficient technology, you need these materials. On top of that, the site also contains other useful materials like niobium and thorium, which have their own uses. For example, thorium is already being looked at for things like medical treatments and maybe even future energy production. And niobium helps make steel stronger and lighter, which is useful in construction, cars, and pipelines. Right now, Europe doesn't have a single working rare earth mine. At the same time, demand for these materials is growing really fast because countries are switching to electric cars and renewable energy. So now, we've got this mismatch. Europe needs more of these materials, but it mostly has to bring them in from the outside. That's why this site in Norway matters so much. It's big, and it has the right mix of materials, so it's now seen as a major strategic resource. It could help Europe rely less on imports and have more control over its own supply of these critical materials. Besides, the sheer size of this deposit means that the project makes sense financially. The thing is, mining is expensive. You need roads, equipment, permits, workers, and all of that costs a lot. If a deposit is small, such costs can be too high to justify digging it up. But when the deposit is huge, those same costs are spread out over much more material. In this case, just the most valuable part, the NdPr material, adds up to around 3 million tons on its own. That's enough to support real, large-scale production. The company behind the project says it could supply about 5% of Europe's demand for these key materials by around 2032. To start, they're aiming to produce about 800 tons per year. They're also working on a new way to mine it, called an invisible mine. Instead of tearing up the surface like traditional mining, they try to work more underground and keep the damage above ground as small as possible. The company has already signed early agreements to sell all the thorium they expect to produce, so buyers are already lined up before a full mining even starts. But even with all that, the project still isn't ready to go. They already have one key permit, basically permission to take the material out of the ground. But they still need another one to actually start full mining operations, and that step can take a while. You see, in Europe, mining projects often move slowly because of environmental reviews, local concerns, and long approval processes. So even though they're aiming to start production by late 2031, that date could still shift. If everything goes smoothly, they expect to reach about 800 tons per year by 2032. That amount would cover roughly 5% of Europe's demand. That might not sound huge at first, but it's a good start, especially considering that, at the moment, Europe depends almost entirely on imports. And these materials are some of the most critical ones out there. The European Commission actually lists them as high risk, meaning there's a real chance of supply problems. In any case, as we see, finding the material is one thing. Actually digging it up, processing it, and turning into a working supply chain is much harder. So now, the question is whether Europe can actually use the rare earth elements it found. Meanwhile, the biggest rare earth mining site on Earth is located in northern China, in Inner Mongolia. It's called Bayan-Obo, and it holds more than 40% of all known rare earth reserves in the world and produces close to half of the global supply. This isn't one normal mine. It's a whole complex made of giant open pits. There are three main ones: the main pit, the east pit, and the west pit. The main pit alone is about 5,000 feet long and 3,500 feet wide. Altogether, the mining area covers about 19 square miles, roughly the size of a small city. Scientists have found more than 200 different minerals there, and they keep discovering new ones. Some of these minerals were first identified at Bayan-Obo, which is why they carry its name. And it didn't even start as a rare earth mine. Back in 1927, it was originally discovered as an iron ore deposit. Only later did people realize it was sitting on one of the most important rare earth sources in the world. Now, when you think of Norway, things that come to mind are the sun that never sets in the summer, unbelievable nature, the fact that it's one of the happiest countries in the world, even white bears that freely roam in the wild. I'm guessing they're happy too. Already planning your trip to this dream country? Well, don't rush. You'll have to review your budget. Fuel there is 10 to 15% more expensive than in other Western European countries. A meal at a cafe for one person will cost at least $30. Plus, consider yourself lucky if you manage to find a hotel at $100 a night. If you Google the most expensive country in the world, you'll see this list. Switzerland, which is meanishly expensive. The United States, duh, been there, know that. Luxembourg is not a surprise either. And then, all of a sudden, you see Norway. Just so you know, a family of 4 would need over $4,000 a month just to exist in Norway. And it doesn't even include rent. Specialists say that Norway is around 7% more expensive than in the US. Norway is a bit weird though. Usually the richest countries have national currencies that are stronger than the US dollar. Take Swiss francs, for example, or the Kuwaiti dinar, which is literally the boss when it comes to currencies. Like one Kuwaiti dinar can snag you $3.25 US. Now, here's where the mismatch comes. The Norwegian krone is dubbed the weakest currency in the West. Well, how come? In the wild world of global currencies, the Norwegian krone used to be a tough player known for smart money moves. But surprisingly, it is now the weakest currency in the West, taking a big hit in the last decade. It has fallen hard against the US dollar and euro, causing concern for central banks and money folks worldwide. The oil price roller coaster is a major factor in the krone's struggle, as Norway relies heavily on oil exports. But even with oil prices relatively high, it remains historically weak against major currencies. The weak Norwegian krone is affecting everyday folks too, with prices rising on almost everything due to heavy imports. Inflation is growing, leading to interest rate hikes by the Norges Bank. High interest rates are hurting the housing market and making life more expensive for Norwegian citizens. So, one of the supposed reasons for why Norway is so expensive might be weak national currency. What else is particular about Norway? Well, climate for sure. It may be hard to imagine a freezingly cold country plunging into riches. It's an imagery we usually see on social media with geotags Dubai, Saudi Arabia, or even Kuwait. And it makes sense to think now that all the riches are somewhere southward, as these places have strong oil-based economies and super strong currencies. But in reality, better economies in the south are a current trend. Ever wonder why cold countries seem to be raking in the cash while the hot nations are just hanging out? Turns out, those living in chilly climates had to hustle just to survive winter. Think building shelter, stockpiling food, and keeping that fire burning. Meanwhile, those basking in the sunshine had it a little easier with hunting and foraging year-round. This theory holds true even in the land down under. Sydney and Melbourne, the top dogs in Australia's wealth game, also happen to be some of the coldest cities, while Darwin, the warmest city, is lagging behind. Some might argue that this theory doesn't hold up when we look at ancient civilizations or modern hotspots like tropical Singapore. But hey, times change, and so does wealth generation. Back in the day, it was all about farming, but now it's more about industry and innovation. So, Norway may seem to have been bound to get rich historically and geographically. Still, it's not exactly so. Norway used to struggle a lot. Back in the day, it faced some tough times with harsh winters and tricky geography. They even had famines that pushed families to seek a better life in the US. So, how did Norway go from rags to riches? Yep, oil and gas played a big role. The country is small, but it has around 0.31% of all oil reserves in the world. But in Norway, there's more to the story than just black gold. For example, the top oil reserve is not some Arab country, but Venezuela, which claims up to 20% of the world's liquid gold. Still, Venezuelan's economy is far from stable, so it's not all about oil. Although bested in forest size by other European nations, Norway was an unrivaled powerhouse in lumber during the Age of Sail. Thanks to its strategic fjord path, timber from its inland forests could quickly reach fjord-side mills and global markets. As railroads unlocked larger forest potential in other countries post the 19th century, Norway was Europe's timber king, bolstered by a world-class merchant fleet by the 20th century. The Norwegian timber wealth, coupled with early cooperative societal norms, spurred growth across several sectors, from agriculture to fishing and banking. Despite being labeled poor in the 19th century, Norway's GDP per capita outshone Eastern and Southern European nations. The nation's ascendancy continues beyond the discovery of its oil reserves. Norway is unique, with a small population but sprawling land. Despite its vastness, the Nordics are scattered and considered one of the most spacious countries globally. Much of the North's territory stretches beyond the Arctic Circle, offering harsh landscapes with thin topsoil covering the bedrock. The tough terrain in Norway, full of mountains and with a short growing season, limits arable land to only 2.2%, similar to Yemen. The scattered arable land in small valleys makes extensive farming impractical, a far cry from the efficient farming in the US. With a huge chunk of land and coastlines, but a small population, Norway makes some serious cash from its reserves. Plus, nature has been pretty kind to Norway, with rich fishing grounds, hydropower from rivers, and power from cold waters. And only then comes the little thing called oil. The late 50s saw a big discovery that changed everything for Norway's economy. Fast forward to today, and petroleum activities have been a major game changer for Norway, feeding its economic growth and funding its welfare state. But Norway didn't just sit back and watch the money flow in. They made smart moves, like creating a sovereign wealth fund to manage their oil wealth for the long haul. The fund sees some big bucks, currently standing at 1.7 billion Norwegian kroner, or over 160 million US dollars. Norway uses the interest from this fund to boost its annual budget, ensuring top-notch healthcare, education, and welfare for its citizens. And here's the kicker: Norway's not resting on its laurels. They're investing in sustainable technologies, like offshore wind power, to secure a bright future beyond oil and gas. Now, Norway may be expensive, but it can't compete with the world's costliest place to live, Monaco. It's almost 4 times more expensive than the global average. So, if you're looking to rub elbows with the rich and famous, look no further than Monaco. With property prices soaring to an average of over $50,000 per square meter in 2022, it's no wonder why this tiny country is a magnet for the la-di-da. However, there's a place that's particularly expensive for tourists, and I'm not talking about tourist traps. Neither Oslo nor Monaco can beat the prices in, well, take a second to make your guess. Ready? Welcome to Ashgabat, Turkmenistan's capital. A gallon of milk costs a whopping $15 US, while a standard internet subscription plan will set you back $168 US a month. Calm down, you're not poor, it's just an economic glitch. The reason for these prices is simple. The Turkmen national currency exchange rate in relation to dollars is fixed and never changes. $1 equals 3.5 manats, and has been so since 2015. Local prices in the local currency grew to inflation, making it not proportionate to prices in dollars. The exchange rate never changes. So if you live there, such prices don't seem to be extraordinary. But if you come with dollars, you're in for a pricey trip.
Deep under the ground, beneath the forests, the rivers, and the cities of Brazil, scientists have found a treasure. Not chests full of gold coins and jewels. This treasure isn't oil either. In fact, 100 years ago, almost nobody cared about this material at all. But today, this treasure has the power to turn any country into a superpower. So what is it? Ready? Brazil has discovered enormous deposits of REE, rare earth elements. If you want a shorter name, just call them the new gold. Rare earth elements are a group of 17 elements from the periodic table. Chemists divide them into 2 groups: light rare earths from lanthanum or europium, and heavy rare earths from gadolinium to lutetium. For most people, these names sound like magic spells from the world of Harry Potter. Avada Samarium, Expecto Gadolinium. You may never have heard of these names before, but they're hiding everywhere around us. Our modern world would collapse without them. We call them rare because they don't usually gather in one place. They're spread out through large areas of rock and soil, so it takes a lot of work to collect them. They're hiding from us, and we have to dig and separate and process huge amounts of ground before we get a small amount of these elements. But what do we get in return? We get technology. We get clean air, better energy efficiency, lighter parts for machines, brighter screens, and stronger magnets. Rare earth elements are like secret ingredients. On their own, they don't look impressive. But when you combine them with other materials, they produce powerful reactions. They make glass for lenses, engines, phones, headphones, MRI machines, solar panels, and many other things. Without them, airplanes would be heavier, rockets would be slower, screens would be darker, and many products simply wouldn't exist. One example is neodymium, which is used to make magnets. Not those that you put on your fridge after travel. A wind turbine needs a magnet made from neodymium. That turbine produces electricity. The electricity charges your laptop. Your laptop lets you watch videos and play games. It's just a magnet, but it directly affects your life. But this magnet can't exist without neodymium. A tiny element in the ground becomes a tiny part inside a giant production that keeps our modern world running. and this is far from the only use of neodymium. And here is why Brazil matters. This country has a chance to become the second largest supplier of rare earth elements in the world and the number one outside of Asia. Mining these elements creates jobs for thousands of people. Processing and selling these metals is a huge boost for the economy. But talking about economic indicators is boring, so let's play a game instead. You'll hear the name of a rare element like a spell from a magic book and try to guess what it's used for. Yeah, once the game is over, you won't magically turn into a REE expert, but you'll surely get to know the subject matter. Maybe you'll even want to work in this field someday. Ready? The first element is scandium. What is it used for? Making books, baseball bats, or chainsaws? The answer is bats. People use scandium to make super strong metal alloys and ultra-light components. Where else can we see it? In bicycle frames, aerospace parts, rocket components, stadium lights, and even X-ray machines. Scandium helps send spacecraft into the sky and produce semiconductors. You have heard that word many times, but many people don't know what it means. A semiconductor is something that can let electricity through and also block it. It's like a tap. Water can flow or it can stop. Semiconductors do the same thing with electric current inside microchips. They're essential for every piece of modern electronics. Next, yttrium. Where can you find it? TVs, ceramics, or batteries? It was a tricky one, so the answer is everywhere. Plus, this element is essential for superconductors. A superconductor is a material that can carry electric current with zero electrical resistance, meaning no energy is lost as heat. In ordinary materials, electricity always produces heat because of resistance. But when superconducting materials are cooled to very low temperatures, resistance disappears and current flows perfectly and safely. Yttrium-based components are crucial components of certain high-temperature superconductors, helping make them practical and usable in real-world applications. So this is also a crucial element for scientists who love to conduct experiments with extremely low temperatures. Yttrium is also added to metals to make them stronger, more heat-resistant, and even more resistant to radiation. In other words, this element is a magic boost for metals. Here comes lanthanum. It sounds like a mighty wizard from a fantasy world who uses spells of illusions or mind control. But what is it for in the real world? Lenses from video cameras? A pencil lead? Air conditioners? Lanthanum is used to make optical glass in camera lenses. When you watch a beautiful scene in a movie or take a photo with your phone, you can quietly thank lanthanum and the people who mined it from the ground. It's also used in oil refining, helping us get fuel and energy that our machines need. Cerium is yet another unsung hero. What does it do? Does it help purify the air, boil water in a kettle, or ensure the operation of vacuum cleaners? It helps the environment. Cerium is used in catalytic converters. These devices clean toxic gases from car exhaust. Without cerium, the air in big cities would be much dirtier. Cerium is also used to clean water and to produce glass that protects from radiation. In a way, this rare element is our shield against poison, pollution, and radioactive danger. Now meet praseodymium. I've got a hint here. It's used in extreme conditions. Which ones? Cold, heat, or vacuum? Praseodymium helps to carry out work in extremely low temperatures, far below the coldest point in Antarctica. It's also used in lasers, magnets, and even for making yellow-green pigments in glass and ceramics. So next time you see a cup colored that way, you can nod wisely and say, "Ah yes, I see a praseodymium." The next element is essential for anyone who loves music. Meet neodymium. What do you think? Are these headphones, microphones, or synthesizers that work thanks to it? This element is used to make magnets that are necessary for speakers, headphones, and hard drive production. It also helps to create high-strength permanent magnets, which are crucial for electric car engines, wind turbines, and many other things. But for most people, the magic of neodymium is simple. It gives us music in our headphones while we ride the bus, walk in the park, or relax at home. REE are everywhere. Even if some objects doesn't contain them inside it, rare earths are probably used to make the machines that produced this object. But that is not all. Brazil also has huge deposits of graphite. Graphite is not a rare earth element, but it's still extremely important. When people hear the word graphite, they think of pencil tips, but that is only a tiny part of its story. Graphite is used to make fire-resistant laboratory containers, lubricants for machines, heat insulation for buildings, anti-corrosion coatings, chemical reagents, and even parts of nuclear reactors. Another treasure that Brazil has is lithium. It's not REE, but our modern world depends on it very much. Today, most modern batteries can't work without lithium. Your phone, your laptop, your electric car, iPad, and camera. All of these devices run on these batteries. Most of the world's lithium comes from Australia. Argentina and Chile produce large amounts too, but Brazil is rising fast. In 2023, this country became the 5th largest producer of lithium. Soon, it may reach 3rd place. Brazil is also a global supplier of nickel, which has its own long list of applications. But we'll stop before your brain melts from too much information. Now you've heard about rare earth elements and the surprising role they play in our lives. They're invisible to us, but they power our world. They help us travel, communicate, create, and dream. That's why this treasure under the soil of Brazil is so valuable. It's not just elements, it's the future. Game over. Congratulations, you've just completed REE 101. Here's your certificate. See you next time.
Beneath the frozen ground of the northernmost region of Finland lies a discovery with the potential to change the world's future, from nuclear energy to electric cars. These minerals make it feel like a sci-fi future is just around the corner. But, as always, it's not that simple. Let's explore why. All the way up here on the map is a region called Lapland, a land with only one chair for every 2 people, so someone has to sit on someone else's lap. It's a remote snow-covered corner of Finland, where reindeer outnumber people who live there. Here, the night sky glows with the northern lights almost 200 times in a single year. Oh, and Santa Claus has a house there. In 1985, Finland declared that Santa lives in Rovaniemi, a town just south of the Arctic Circle in Lapland. They even built Santa Claus Village, where visitors can meet with them. You can cross the Arctic Circle line and see his main post office, which receives hundreds of thousands of letters from kids worldwide every year. So, it's sufficient to say that most people know about this place because of Santa's workshop, rather than scientific news. But deep below the ice and pine forests is the Sockley deposit. It's a massive mineral geological site that's been studied for decades. It's mostly known for iron and phosphate. We use iron to make, well, almost everything, while phosphate mostly ends up as fertilizer to grow our food. However, recently, surveys revealed rare earth elements, niobium, and traces of radioactive metals like thorium and uranium. The possibility of thorium is what made news outlets excited. Thorium is a naturally occurring, slightly radioactive metal. It's way more common in the Earth's crust than uranium. In fact, it's about 3 to 4 times as abundant. Scientists love it because thorium could be turned into nuclear fuel with huge numbers as the output gain. A chunk of thorium the size of a golf ball could, in theory, generate as much energy as several tons of coal. It also comes with some major perks. Thorium reactors would produce less waste, meaning that thorium is much easier to contain and safer to use. And it even has an interesting trivia. Thorium was once used in old-fashioned gas lantern mantles because it glows when heated. And that's not all. The Sockley deposit also has other rare minerals that are critical for making magnets that go into wind turbines. electric cars, and even your smartphone. With the right investment, this single deposit could help Europe build thousands of new wind turbines or power millions of electric car batteries. So, did Finland and the entire planet just hit the geological lottery? Well, yes and no. Today, nuclear plants don't run on thorium, they run on uranium, the trusty fuel that has been powering reactors for decades. The whole system, from mining to reactor design to handling the waste, is built around uranium. It already provides around 10% of the world's electricity. In fact, in some countries, like France, it's the main source. It works, it powers millions of homes, and the industry knows exactly how to handle it. Thorium does not play by the same rules. It's not fissile, which means it cannot split and release energy on its own. Which is a fancy way of saying it needs a little help to become useful. You cannot just toss it into a regular reactor and expect magic to happen. That would be like trying to charge a Tesla by pouring gasoline into the tank. To make thorium work, you'd need different types of reactors and the system that could support them. One that's expensive, experimental, and not yet ready for prime time. So yes, Sockley's thorium looks impressive. It's full of sparkle and promise. But for now, it is staying underground, waiting for future technologies and investments. But what about those other rare earth elements? Neodymium and praseodymium might be tricky to pronounce, yes they are, but they're hiding inside almost everything these days, from earbuds to the massive MRI machines in hospitals. They drive the motors in electric cars and help giant wind turbines spin. In short, they're everywhere. And then there's niobium. This metal makes steel even stronger. Add a little niobium and suddenly you've got stronger, lighter alloys used in bridges and even rockets. Today, Europe imports nearly all of it, mainly from Brazil. If Sockley were developed, Finland could give Europe a homegrown supply. However, again, it's complicated. Like I mentioned, Lapland happens to be one of the most beautiful places on the entire planet. It's one of Europe's last great wildernesses, where pine forests stretch for miles. And digging up all those materials wouldn't be without consequences. Mining at this scale could ruin the landscape, upset Santa, or endanger delicate Arctic ecosystems. After all, we're talking about radioactive elements. It's not just about nature, though. Indigenous Sami communities live in Lapland, so they have a voice in what happens. It's a tricky situation that relies on more research and tech advancements. Until then, what are some other delicate places that could hide thorium? Well, thorium is not that hard to find. It's tucked away in beach sands and mountain deposits. But the coolest place to get it would be from the moon. Back in the 1990s, NASA's Lunar Prospector spacecraft mapped the lunar surface and spotted areas unusually rich in thorium. Now, that's an incentive for speeding up the future moon missions, especially since our satellite probably hides elements like helium-3, which are incredibly rare on our planet. Mining the moon might be a perfect solution. Big companies will certainly have way less competition. But hey, that sounds like a decent challenge for humanity, given that the moon has no atmosphere, which makes it exposed to radiation and wild temperature changes. So, we will see. Meanwhile, let's go back to Earth for another seemingly unrelated discovery. Going down to the deep ocean seabeds, scientists recently found something pretty surprising. While exploring the Pacific abyssal plains, they discovered polymetallic nodules. These are potato-sized lumps of metal that are also important for making batteries. But the cool part is that the nodules seem to be releasing oxygen into the water. Scientists call it the dark oxygen. Ooh. Normally, oxygen comes from photosynthesis, which needs sunlight to reach plants, algae, or bacteria. But down here, in total darkness, there is no sunlight. The idea is that these rocks act like tiny batteries. Their surfaces can create very small electric currents and split water into hydrogen and oxygen. Basically, these rocks might be quietly breathing oxygen all on their own. If this is true, it could change how we understand deep-sea life. Some creatures might not just rely on hydrothermal vents or food falling from above. They could be getting a secret oxygen boost from the rocks themselves. Now, research is still new, and some researchers say this oxygen could be contaminated or just too little in volume to matter. But if it's real, it means life in the abyss might have a secret oxygen supply we never even knew existed. Creepy, mysterious, and kind of amazing all at once. It also makes us wonder about life on other planets. If rocks on Earth can make oxygen in total darkness, maybe extraterrestrial oceans on moons like Europa or Enceladus can too. The universe might be full of secret oxygen factories just waiting to surprise us. Finally, aside from thorium, Finland recently made headlines with another cool geological discovery. Scientists found some zircon crystals that washed into rivers, and when they looked closer, they noticed that the chemical signatures didn't match local rocks. Instead, they traced back to Greenland. This suggests that part of Scandinavia's ancient base might actually have come from there. In simpler terms, it's possible that Scandinavia broke off from Greenland and drifted across the ocean billions of years ago. This unexpected link makes the Nordic landscape a lot older and more interesting than we previously thought. Whether the Sokley deposit could power the future with infinite energy remains to be seen. Each day seems to bring another discovery that inspires conversation and prompts us to learn something new. Who knows what new technologies or hidden resources the next decade will uncover? Now, excuse me, since I've learned his address, I have to write a letter to Santa. I'm still trying to get off of his naughty list.
Some places don't look important until the world realizes they hold the keys to the future. That's the case with Canada's Arctic. For most of history, it was just ice, snow, rocks, caribou, and, even more ice. But now, it's about to become one of the most important places on Earth, and maybe make Canada a global superpower. Why? Because it's hiding minerals that power electric vehicles, satellites, and missile systems, while the demand is skyrocketing. However, it's not just mining and having resources, it's also about control. Right now, China has a massive head start because it refines over 90% of the world's rare earths. That means if you want to launch a satellite, manufacture advanced electronics, or even just keep the lights on in your fancy smart home, odds are you're relying on China. And that makes a lot of world powers very nervous. Because when everything's going electric, the last thing you need is being dependent on your geopolitical rival. So now, the global clean tech treasure hunt is officially on. The US, Europe, Japan, Australia, they're all competing. However, the latest technology and untapped potential might give Canada the upper hand. Canada's had these minerals for decades. But with low prices, tough terrain, and no global rush, they mostly stayed untouched. However, Ottawa is finally stepping up its game. Back in 2022, Canada rolled out the Critical Minerals Strategy with billions in funding and tax perks to get companies digging. There's also plans to build the necessary roads, ports, and power lines to tap into those remote deposits up north. Canada already produces more than 60 minerals and metals, but 31 of them are now considered critical. 6 of those are having VIP treatment: lithium, graphite, nickel, cobalt, copper, and rare earth elements. But digging it up is just step 1. The real plan? Keep it local. Melt that frozen treasure into shiny new batteries right at home. That means not just mines, but also refineries, processing centers, and high-tech factories popping up where there used to be nothing but snowdrifts and silence. While others are talking, Canada's busy paving roads and stringing power lines. Slowly but surely, they're turning snowfields into a high-tech playground. Getting to all that buried treasure used to be nearly impossible. After all, we're talking about land so remote that roads literally stop hundreds of miles too early. The ground is frozen solid for most of the year. And even if you found something valuable, just getting out was a logistical nightmare. So what changed? Canada has an ace up its sleeve. Don't know about you, but I use it mainly for making memes and music. But geologists? They're scanning the Arctic like it's Minecraft with X-ray vision. Instead of drilling blind, they're using decades-old core samples, plugging them into AI and getting shockingly accurate predictions about what's underground. It's like upgrading from a pirate's treasure map to a GPS that actually says, "Dig here." Companies like Geologic AI and Cobalt Metals are already doing this, pouring data into AI and getting X marks the spot hits for nickel, cobalt, and rare earths. In the Northwest Territories, Canada is running a pilot lab that uses AI and digital scanning to reanalyze decades-old rock samples. The goal is to spot hidden mineral deposits that old methods might have missed without digging a single new hole. All that sounds great, but maybe I made it sound simpler than it is. Digging up the Arctic is a logistical nightmare. For starters, this isn't just a remote patch of land. The Canadian Arctic is huge. Almost half the country, stretching over Yukon, the Northwest Territories, and Nunavut. We're talking about a region larger than India, with fewer people than a small city. Most of it is permafrost, wilderness, or ice-covered islands scattered across the Arctic archipelago. Temperatures go from barely 50 degrees Fahrenheit during summer to negative 40 degrees Fahrenheit or colder, with ground that stays frozen for most of the year. Fun fact, did you know that negative 40 degrees happens to be the same as negative 40 degrees Celsius? It's the one temperature where both scales intersect. They climb at different rates, but eventually cross paths when it gets cold enough. Just a small trivia nugget for weather nerds like me. Anyways, you can't just roll in a truck and break ground in the Arctic. Up there, roads just stop. Want to build something? It can take years, and one nasty winter can put everything on ice. And if you want to continue up north, you need more of everything. More food, more fuel, more machines, which means even more money. Speaking of money, another chilling fact is how much this all costs. Mining in the far north is way more expensive than doing it in, say, Australia or Chile. An AI might tell you where the minerals are, but people and big machines still have to dig, and that costs a fortune. But that's not all. Most of the Canadian North is Indigenous land. First Nations, Inuit, and Métis communities have lived there for thousands of years, and mineral hotspots often sit right on their ancestral grounds. So when Canada talks about unlocking the Arctic, it's not just a question of roads and robots. It's a question of partnership and collaboration. And that's not optional. Legally, projects on Indigenous land require consultation and, in many cases, consent. The good news, some communities aren't just involved, they're leading the way. In regions like Nunavut and the Northwest Territories, Indigenous-owned corporations and world powers are already shaping how development happens on their terms. If Canada wants to pull this off, it's going to need more than tech and funding. It's going to need trust. So with all that in mind, can Canada pull this off? Honestly? With technological advancements and partnerships, it doesn't seem impossible. But Canada isn't just doing one thing right. It's doing a bunch of things at the same time. Let's recap. Hidden resources? Checked. New strategy? In place. Big funding? Approved. AI tools? Deployed. Indigenous partnerships? Underway. Infrastructure? Already breaking ground. It's a snowball turning into an avalanche. Exploration boosts investment. Investment speeds up roads. Roads unlock more deposits. More deposits attract more factories. It's a feedback loop, and if they keep feeding it, the whole Arctic operation could go from an idea to empire faster than anyone expects, giving a whole new meaning to the phrase frozen assets. But this doesn't just help Canada. It could save the US a whole lot of trouble. If all goes to plan, the US won't need to ship rare earths halfway across the planet. It can just look north, wave at the caribou, and get what it needs from its closest neighbor. That's why the US has publicly backed the effort, offering support and funding to help build a trusted North American supply chain. For Canada, this could be the moment it stops being just a supplier of raw materials and starts becoming a critical power broker in the clean tech economy. For the US, it's like discovering your neighbor has been secretly building a battery factory in their backyard, while you were building electric vehicles. And globally, Well, the abundance of resources tends to lower the prices, and that's always a good thing for us regular people. Cheaper cobalt, nickel, and lithium mean cheaper batteries. And cheaper batteries mean more affordable electric vehicles, energy storage, phones, laptops, the works. Now, don't get too excited just yet. Like we said, mining in the Arctic isn't cheap. But in theory, once Canada's clean tech engine is fully up and humming, more supply and shorter supply chains should gradually bring costs down. And it's not just about price tags, it's about stability. Right now, if one country cuts exports or gets caught in politics, everything down the line gets shaky. But with Canada stepping in as a reliable supplier, the global system might get a bit more breathing room. Manufacturers can stop sweating over single points of failure and start building with confidence. For more than a century, the world believed the age of easy energy discoveries was over. Oil fields were mapped. Gas reserves were hunted down. Coal deposits were dug out across entire continents. Humanity kept drilling deeper into the Earth, convinced the planet had already revealed most of its hidden wealth. But now, beneath some of the oldest rocks on Earth, scientists in Canada may have uncovered something that could completely change the future of global energy. Deep below the forests and frozen landscapes of northern Canada, hydrogen gas has been escaping silently from ancient underground rock formations. Not for days, not for years, possibly for millions of years. And researchers are beginning to realize this may not be just a strange scientific detail. It could become one of the biggest untapped energy discoveries on the planet. The discovery is centered around the Canadian Shield, a gigantic geological formation that stretches across much of Canada. These rocks are unbelievably old. Some are nearly 2.5 billion years old, formed long before dinosaurs, trees, or even complex life existed on Earth. For decades, scientists mainly studied these rocks for valuable minerals like gold, copper, nickel, and cobalt. But recently, researchers studying underground rock systems near Timmins, Ontario, noticed something unusual. Hydrogen gas was constantly escaping from deep holes drilled into the rock. At first, that may not sound very exciting. After all, hydrogen is already used around the world in industries like fertilizer production, steel manufacturing, and chemical plants. Authorities are spending billions trying to expand hydrogen technology because countries want cleaner energy and less pollution. But there is one huge problem. Most hydrogen today is not clean. When I say not clean, I mean this hydrogen is usually made by burning dirty fuels that fill the air with pollution. Most of it comes from natural gas and other fossil fuels, through industrial processes that release huge amounts of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. Even green hydrogen, which is made of renewable electricity like solar or wind power, still costs a lot of money and requires massive amounts of energy to produce. But what scientists may have found in Canada is completely different. Naturally occurring hydrogen is also called white hydrogen. Unlike industrial hydrogen, this gas appears to be produced naturally beneath Earth's surface through chemical reactions involving underground water and iron-rich rocks. In very simple terms, the Earth itself may be slowly creating fuel underground all on its own. That is why this discovery is creating so much excitement in the scientific and energy world. Researchers from the University of Toronto and the University of Ottawa spent years measuring gases inside underground mine holes. What they found surprised even experienced scientists. The hydrogen was not showing up in random little bursts. It kept flowing continuously. Some holes released hydrogen year after year without stopping. Scientists estimated that thousands of these underground holes together could potentially create enough energy every year to power hundreds of homes from just one area. And researchers believe this may only be a tiny piece of what exists beneath the Canadian Shield. The implications are enormous. To understand why, it helps to understand how unusual white hydrogen really is. For many years, scientists believed natural hydrogen deposits were probably too small or too rare to matter. Hydrogen molecules are incredibly tiny and difficult to trap underground. Many experts assumed the gas would simply escape before large underground reservoirs could ever form. But discoveries around the world are beginning to challenge that idea. In Mali, naturally occurring hydrogen has already been used to generate electricity locally. Similar signs of underground hydrogen have also been found in parts of Europe, Africa, Australia, and the United States. Now Canada may have joined that list in a very major way. And Canada has one enormous advantage: its geology. The Canadian Shield contains huge amounts of ancient iron-rich rock, exactly the kind of environment scientists believe can naturally generate hydrogen underground. When water touches certain minerals deep below the Earth's surface, chemical reactions can produce hydrogen gas as a byproduct. Over unbelievably long periods of time, this process may continue almost like a giant slow-moving natural factory buried beneath the crust of the Earth. Scientists now believe some regions of Canada could contain massive underground hydrogen-producing systems. If that turns out to be true, the economic impact could be historic. The modern world runs on energy power. Countries with large energy reserves often gain huge political and economic influence. Oil transformed parts of the Middle East. Places like Dubai changed from small fishing villages into giant global business centers after oil wealth exploded across the region. Hydrogen could become the next major global energy race. Countries across Europe, Asia, and North America are already competing to dominate future hydrogen technology. Entire industries are being redesigned around cleaner energy systems. Shipping companies want cleaner fuel for cargo ships. Airlines are studying hydrogen-powered aircraft. Steel factories need alternatives to coal. Power grids need better ways to store energy. And authorities everywhere are under pressure to reduce pollution without destroying their economies. That is why white hydrogen is attracting so much attention. Unlike coal, oil, or natural gas, hydrogen mainly releases water vapor when used as fuel instead of carbon dioxide. In theory, it could power huge parts of the global economy while producing far less pollution. And if hydrogen can be pulled directly from underground natural reservoirs, it could avoid many of the expensive industrial steps currently needed to manufacture hydrogen artificially. That possibility is attracting growing interest from mining companies, investors, and energy researchers all over the world. Some experts are even comparing this moment to the very beginning of the oil industry, when few people understood how deeply petroleum would eventually reshape civilization. But there is another reason this discovery matters so much. Canada may already have many of the tools needed to become a hydrogen superpower. The country has enormous land area, advanced mining infrastructure, stable political systems, huge freshwater resources, and decades of experience extracting natural resources from underground. Many of the same regions rich in minerals may also contain hydrogen-producing geology. That means future hydrogen production could potentially develop alongside existing mining operations. Some remote northern communities that currently depend on expensive imported fuel could someday use nearby underground hydrogen systems for cleaner local energy. Mining operations themselves might even run using hydrogen pulled from the same rock formations they are already drilling into. For Canada, the long-term financial opportunity could be staggering. But despite all the excitement, there are still many unanswered questions. Scientists still do not know how large these underground hydrogen systems truly are. Nobody knows how easy or difficult it will be to extract the gas at large commercial scale. And there's another major challenge. Hydrogen is difficult to handle. Its molecules are extremely tiny, which means the gas can leak very easily. It's also highly flammable, meaning it must be stored and transported very carefully. And history has shown that not every exciting energy discovery becomes economically successful. Some researchers warn that the hype around white hydrogen may currently be moving faster than the actual science. Others believe that even moderate success could still reshape global energy markets over time. Right now, the biggest breakthrough may not be the amount of hydrogen already discovered. The most important discovery may simply be the proof that natural hydrogen can exist underground, continuously flow, and survive inside ancient geological systems for extremely long periods of time. That changes the conversation completely. For decades, natural hydrogen was mostly seen as a scientific curiosity. Now it's becoming a serious exploration target. Companies are beginning to search for hydrogen-rich geology, the same way oil companies once searched for giant petroleum fields. And if future drilling confirms larger underground reservoirs, the race for white hydrogen could accelerate very quickly. The timing is almost perfect. The world is entering an era of rising energy demand, political instability, and growing pressure to reduce carbon pollution. Authorities need cleaner energy sources powerful enough to support modern industrial civilization. Very few energy systems can realistically operate at that scale. White hydrogen may become one of them. And beneath Canada's ancient rocks, hidden under landscapes formed billions of years ago, the Earth may have been quietly preparing this resource the entire time. What scientists have uncovered so far may only be the beginning. Because if the Canadian Shield truly contains enormous natural hydrogen systems, then this discovery is not just about geology. It could become one of the most important energy discoveries of the 21st century.
If you come across a well in Portugal, resist the temptation to gaze into its depths. The inverted tower in the enigmatic city of Sintra sends chills through those who encounter it as it spirals down a daunting 88 feet into the underground. It certainly wasn't designed to collect water, yet its true purpose remains a closely guarded secret. Dating back to around 1904, this well could have been involved in a mysterious initiation tradition from the Knights Templar. The Templars had faded into history almost 6 centuries before the construction of this pit, but their enigmatic traditions were revived by later generations. So one theory says that candidates seeking to join the group back then had to confront their deepest fears by facing this well, descending its spiral staircase blindfolded. When they reached the bottom of the inverted tower, they removed their blindfolds and were faced with this frightening sight. The only way out of this dark labyrinth was to keep looking up and following the light. Now imagine yourself browsing the shelves of a used bookstore until you find a book with an alphabet you've never seen before. You decide to use an image translation app but find no matches. Intrigued, you buy the book. Then you show it to your friends and family, but nobody recognizes that alphabet. Rare book dealer Winfried Vonnig probably experienced the same frustration back in 1912, when he acquired what would later become the most enigmatic book in the world. The work is known today as the Voynich manuscript, and it's written entirely in an unknown language that no one has deciphered yet. The pages of this 15th century codex are filled with botanical drawings, but these aren't typical daisies or roses. In fact, they don't resemble any plant species that we know of. What makes things even stranger is the illustrations of unfamiliar constellations and women swimming in green baths. Delving deeper into the realm of mysterious texts, we set off on a journey to the Qumran Caves near the Salt Sea in the Middle East. In 1952, a team of archaeologists stumbled upon 2 scrolls made of highly oxidized copper at the site. Unrolling them was a major challenge, so they decided to cut the scrolls into 23 parts to investigate them. Imagine their surprise to see Hebrew words like gold and silver popping up. But no, it wasn't an ancient invoice. It was more like a treasure map, pointing the way to over $1 million. Unfortunately, the treasure was never found. Not for lack of trying, though. You see, the quest isn't as easy as it may appear. Some of the Copper Scroll's vocabulary is technical, and some geographical locations remain a mystery. There's also one last possibility. Perhaps it's all a work of fiction, like a pirate tale from the old days. People talk about Mona Lisa's almost haunting stare that seems to follow you no matter where you stand. But here's a quick question. Does she have eyebrows? You got it right if you said no, and her complete lack of eyebrows adds another layer of mystique to her gaze. The most common explanation is that beauty standards were different, and perhaps plucking the hairs above the eyes was a thing around 1503. But take a look at other Italian paintings from that time, like La Schiavona or Portrait of a Young Girl. Yep, eyebrows. So, not everyone was entirely pleased with this theory, like French inventor Pascal Cotte. He spent 3,000 hours analyzing scans of the painting to dig through all the layers of Leonardo da Vinci's masterpiece. Now he claims that the Mona Lisa once had eyebrows, but they disappeared over time due to cleanings and restorations. Some historians, however, still question his findings, which means that Mona Lisa's style, or lack of it, remains an unsolved mystery. So, you decide to travel to Rio de Janeiro, and everyone tells you that Sugarloaf Mountain is a must-see. When you spot the mountain from a distance, you realize that the stone has a cavity. But around noon, the whole view changes. The shadow in that cavity takes the shape of a bird, an ibis to be precise. A local legend links this bird shape to the ancient Egyptian deity Thoth, as if the ancient Egyptians once visited Rio de Janeiro and were somehow inspired by the natural phenomenon. But it's probably just a big coincidence. I mean, literally. The real mystery, however, lies in the waters around Sugarloaf Mountain. In the 80s, archaeologist Robert Marks got a tip from locals about a treasure hidden beneath Guanabara Bay. He dove in and found quite a few Roman amphorae. You know, those ancient vases with two handles? His discovery could potentially provide evidence of a Roman shipwreck that might have reached Brazil 17 centuries before the Portuguese even set foot there. However, he couldn't proceed with his research, and to this day, the idea of the Roman presence on Brazil's coast remains uncertain. The true location of Cleopatra's tomb isn't the only ancient Egyptian mystery. Many secrets are carved into the walls of ancient structures, like in the Temple of Seti I. Take a close look at this hieroglyph, and you'll notice that it resembles a modern-day helicopter. Look to the right, and you'll see an engraving that looks like a submarine. Odd, right? The most reasonable explanation for this has to do with the legacies of different rulers. When a new pharaoh came to power, they had their own hieroglyphs added over the original ones. But this is still a topic of debate, as some Egyptologists believe that these mysterious hieroglyphs may represent some kind of ancient technology. The same applies to the Dendera light. The image found in the underground passageway of the Hathor Temple is a subject of significant controversy in Egyptian history. Some researchers suggest that the inscription simply represents a rising sun, while others interpret it as evidence of some kind of modern lighting system. And it does indeed resemble Crookes' tube, one of the early experiments with electrical discharges. Although there's no concrete evidence of ancient Egyptians having modern electricity, some historians believe that this theory could help explain why many discovered tombs don't have any residues left behind from the use of oil lamps or candles. A lot has been said about the mysterious pyramids of Egypt, but many people tend to forget that other inexplicable structures had already existed even before them. Our next stop takes us to Turkey. The top of a hill known as Göbekli Tepe, near the city of Urfa, holds an ancient secret. It features more than 20 circular stone enclosures dated back over 11,000 years. Many of these have heavily carved stone T-shaped pillars adorned with eerie human figures with folded hands. The most accepted theory is that it's the world's first temple, likely used for rituals or social events. But the greatest mystery lies in how it was built. as this site existed before the domestication of animals or the use of metal tools. So the construction must have been very difficult, challenging our understanding of the historical timeline. Now, I hope you're not afraid of heights, because we're about to take a flight over the Nazca Lines. You've probably already heard about these massive, mysterious drawings etched into an arid region of Peru. They come in many different shapes, like a spider, a monkey, and even a Google-eyed ET, that is probably just a fisher. Anyway, this story got some fresh chapters in 2022 when an additional 168 new drawings were discovered. The original ones could only be seen from the air, but these new ones are much smaller and can be observed from the ground. However, one thing they have in common is that their purpose remains totally unclear. Some might call them the largest-scale calendar in the world. Others suggest that they served as a tool for agricultural purposes. Of course, many theories have emerged in an attempt to give the Nazca Lines a meaning, but the truth is that they remain some of the most important unsolved mysteries in history.
Do you know how much gold has been mined by humans throughout history? About 216,000 tons, and 2/3 of this amount was mined after the 1950s. Different countries, different times, thousands of different people involved. But what if you found huge deposits of gold in one place? What if a giant gold ore deposit was discovered? No, not just giant, but super giant. This is exactly what was found in China. A group of geologists discovered about 40 gold veins with about 330 tons of gold ore. But that's not all. 3D modeling has shown that even more gold lies underneath. At a depth of about 9,800 feet, there may be several hundred more tons. In short, there is a chance that they will discover deposits with about 1,100 tons of gold. Can you imagine how much that is? If not, that's about $83 billion. Wow! Experts say that this deposit contains approximately 4.9 ounces per ton of ore. It seems that this is negligible, but in fact, it's a high indicator in gold mining. Usually, 0.35 ounces per ton is awesome. If all calculations turn out to be correct, it will be the largest gold mine in the world, even bigger than the South Deep mine located in South Africa, with its 1,025 tons of gold. Everyone is worried. Everyone is happy. Gold, gold, gold on their minds. Everyone wants gold. Everyone buys gold. Gold is rising in price. Gold is more reliable than Bitcoin and cash. Gold is associated with wealth and luxury. Gold is always a valuable and profitable investment. But hold up. Why is it so? Why do people go crazy over some shiny metal? The fact is that gold has both practical and psychological value. For centuries, gold has represented power, prestige, and wealth in different cultures. It seems we're born in a genetic memory that gold is valuable. Think of how many problems gold has brought to literary heroes and how many gold-related adventures we've seen in movies. Gold makes people happy and greedy, cruel and intimidated. That's why so many people love it. Yes, it glitters, it's beautiful, but it's also practical. Gold doesn't rust, it doesn't corrode, it can be stored for a long time, and it doesn't deteriorate. It's literally a reliable investment. All other savings may lose value because of crises, but gold remains unchanged. The only problem, it can get stolen. In addition to jewelry making, gold is used in electronics, medicine, aerospace, and many other industries. Bitcoin has a value because of the public support of people around the world. Money has value thanks to the support of authorities. Gold has value on its own. It's tangible and visually appealing, and its worth is also supported by people's centuries-old belief in its enduring value. But never let gold cloud your mind. Many people lose their honor and even their minds over it. Avoid this trap. It's just a shiny piece of metal. There are other precious metals in the periodic table: palladium, silver, copper, platinum. Why is gold number one? Cheaper metals such as copper, iron, lead, and aluminum corrode and rust. Aluminum is also not durable. Platinum and palladium are more expensive than gold, but they're too rare and difficult to mine. You won't make many coins out of them. Silver is softer than gold. It tarnishes, scratches, and deforms. And, well, to be honest, gold is more beautiful. But there is another reason why gold is so expensive. It's quite difficult to get. Gold mining is a very laborious and long process. In movies or documentaries, you might have seen people standing at the mouth of a river, collecting silt and clay, sifting it through gauze and small nets, and finding gold particles there. That's one of the methods for how gold is mined. You have to work hard to get just a few small pieces. How do they find gold? It used to be luck. Someone was walking along the shore and saw something glistening in the water. But today, gold detection methods are much more effective. Geologists know that gold is present in almost all rocks and soil, but its particles are so tiny that they're not visible. But when the concentration of gold is high and noticeable, work begins to extract it. Special geological teams are engaged in searching for these sites. When they discover gold, they drill wells, then take soil samples and decide if there's enough metal to carry out large-scale mining. Production depends on the deposit. If gold is in hard rock, miners drill holes, place dynamite, and detonate it. The explosion breaks the rock into pieces so they can extract the gold. But this is just the beginning of the work. After collecting large pieces of rock, workers take them to factories to extract valuable material. At the first stage, specialists break large pieces of rock into smaller ones. Using crushing machines, they grind the ore into tiny pieces, similar to gravel. This gravel then enters rotating drums filled with steel balls. The drums spin, and the balls grind the gravel into powder under pressure. This mass is then mixed with water and passes through special filters. After that, gold is extracted from the ore using chemical solvents and complex purification systems. It adheres to carbon, then is separated from it, followed by several additional processes, including electrolysis and further purification. At the end, the gold is melted and separated from impurities, then poured into ingots and sent to other plants for further processing. Yes, it's a difficult and time-consuming process, and quite a long one. And it's not always profitable. You can find a deposit of precious metal, but it will be too expensive to extract it, and the amount of gold there won't be enough to make the effort worthwhile. Only 10% of the world's gold deposits contain enough precious material to pay back for its extraction and processing. There are many areas filled with gold. Do you know how many of them are suitable for productive mining? Less than 0.1%. So this is probably another reason why gold is so valuable. But is there any other material that causes a lot of excitement? Oh yes, this material is called liquid gold. And this is helium. That's the gas used to inflate balloons. But this is not its main value. Helium is capable of reaching ultra-low temperatures, is superconducting, and is lightweight. Helium is used in medicine for diagnostics. For example, for magnetic resonance imaging. Helium cools nuclear reactors and maintains rocket fuel temperatures during launch. Divers breathe a mixture of helium and oxygen during deep dives to avoid diseases associated with pressure changes. Helium is crucial for the modern world. Another precious material is graphene. It's not just one of the most durable materials in the world, it's a highly conductive material. Heat and electricity pass through graphene easily, which makes it very promising for the development of what? Considering that graphene is also flexible, water-repellent, non-toxic, and has antibacterial properties, it's suitable for developing everything. Medical equipment, mechanical engineering, electronics, construction, logistics, energy conservation, space and underwater industries, and much more. Scientists believe that graphene has the potential to enable revolutionary new technologies that could change the lives of all people. Something similar happened with silicon, which is actively used to create semiconductors and rechargeable batteries. It's possible that without silicon, we wouldn't have smartphones, laptops, and other electronic devices. Graphene may also lead to a new technological leap. When the world switches to renewable sources of energy and uses electric transport, graphene can become technological gold. During tests, graphene batteries have shown that they charge more than 70 times faster than regular ones and last 3 times longer. At the same time, they're cheaper and environmentally friendly. Okay, that sounds cool, but where do we get this graphene? It's obtained from graphite, which lies in the bowels of the Earth. One of the largest graphite deposits is located in South Australia. 200 million tons of high-quality graphite. It sounds like it could be enough for the entire planet.
For every 1.8 degrees Fahrenheit increase in a country's average temperature, the GDP per capita drops by at least 1.1%. To put it simply, with every step you take from the North Pole to the equator, not only do you get hotter, but you also get poorer. Even though life in freezing cold countries can seem miserable, 74.2% of the world's billionaires are concentrated in the global north. And there are at least 4 theories explaining that. The simplest theory is tied to biology. Cold weather is believed to keep germs away, leading to better health and productivity. Sounds good, but I'll challenge that later. Next, there's the sloth theory from ancient Greece, and it's more about climate in general. Greeks believed their ideal weather made them wealthier, while hotter regions were seen as less creative. The third idea is based on economic and anthropological studies. You see, experts noticed some time ago that colder countries have inclusive institutions that offer equal job and life opportunities and protect markets and private property. Naturally, such conditions promote healthy competition and boost wealth. The last idea is tightly connected to the previous one. Long story short, richer countries tend to distribute money better because they're more inclusive. Poorer nations often have extractive institutions where a powerful elite controls wealth. While all of them seem plausible, the truth is, these ideas are borderline insane. Well, you know the theory claiming that cold climates eliminates germs and the population of colder countries doesn't get so sick? I don't want to be the bearer of bad news, but the cold actually makes germs thrive. In the cold, we tend to stay inside with the whole house shut, so we share germs with each other more easily. Not only that, but during winter, the air is drier, creating the perfect environment for the flu virus to flourish. Humans are also more resistant to viruses and bacteria from their own environment because the constant contact with them makes our immune system stronger. If you look back at your history classes, you might remember that most British people struggled with the weather and bacteria found in America, while Native Americans themselves were mostly fine. And what about the sloth theory? Sorry, I don't mean it to sound offensive, but some specialists, they claim that, people in hotter countries tend to be lazier. But the truth is, the sun doesn't make us work less. Yes, the sun can make you a bit slower because you can dehydrate. But you see, the human body is biologically adapted to the climate of the place they're born in. This means that if you live in Canada, for example, you can endure the cold just fine. But Brazilians will probably handle hot days better than you. But if the sloth theory was true, how would you explain that people in Colombia work about 200 hours a year more than those from the United States? In fact, if you live in Cambodia, Myanmar, or Mexico, you're bound to work more than anyone in the world. Besides, hotter countries have a genius way to fight off laziness. It's called siesta. After lunch, it's normal to feel a bit sleepy, and if you have heavier meals like the Spanish and Italians do, you'll get extra slow. This is why after lunch they usually have a siesta, also known as a quick nap, which improves your memory and thinking skills. It may sound like a siesta makes you work less, but people who nap after lunch simply work at different hours of the day. While you make shorter lunch breaks and go home at 6 p.m., in Spain, The lunch break lasts 2 hours, and the workday ends at 8 p.m. They work when it's not so hot outside, and even get to take a power nap. The past is also crowded with people who lived rich lives despite the scorching sun. The ancient Egypt civilization may have existed thousands of years ago, but they were one of the richest civilizations ever, even though they lived in a place that was super hot and super dry. We also have the Aztecs, who lived in Mexico back when Mexico didn't exist yet. This region is not so famous for its cold weather, I can tell you that. But the Aztec civilization still managed to have a capital that was bigger than London, Paris, and Madrid of the time. On top of that, many of the inventions we have today that make a lot of people rich were created thanks to math and science. Two things born in hot places, like Mesopotamia and India. Now, to make all those economic and anthropological studies sound simpler, let's start with the most obvious part. It's true that hotter countries usually make money out of their natural resources. They don't have such strong industries, and the money is concentrated in the hands of the elite. All of this reduces the GDP, that thing that estimates whether a country is wealthy or not. Remember we said richer countries have inclusive institutions? These institutions are basically laws that make sure people have equal job and life opportunities, including nice houses and a good salary. Poor countries are not very good at this inclusive institution thing, but it's not by choice. This is actually a consequence of the age of exploration. In case you were sleeping during your history classes, let me remind you. The age of exploration is that time between the 15th and 17th centuries, when many kingdoms in Europe were exploring the seas and setting up colonies all over the world. I know it feels like this was a long time ago, but many countries that were colonies back then only became independent during the 20th and 21st century. This is why many poor countries don't have solid industries and markets, because their institutions and laws date back to when they were still colonies, and their years as colonies depleted resources and didn't provide a good infrastructure. Besides, saying that private property reduces the income and inequality gap is kind of absurd. It's true that developing countries like Brazil and South Africa are highly unequal, but in the US, for example, 1% of the richest people in the country make 139 times more money than the poorest part of the population. And there were more than 700,000 homeless people in 2024. Besides, 1% of the world's population is wealthier than the rest of humankind put together. If inclusive institutions were really that powerful in richer countries, then there wouldn't be more than 1 billion people living in acute poverty all over the world. There's no point in saying that private property makes everyone's lives better if people can't even afford to have a house in the first place. And using the GDP to calculate the wealth of a country is not exactly the best way to understand poverty, because the GDP only considers how much money the industry itself makes. It ignores, for example, the question of whether people who work in those industries have good jobs, if they are well paid and have a good life. The GDP also ignores inequality, which means it ignores those inclusive institutions we mentioned before. In the United States, there are about 835 billionaires, but 11% of the American population is still very poor. So, my hot take here is that inclusive institutions are not that inclusive, and that money is not that well distributed in the first place. Different cultures also have different concepts of what it means to be wealthy. In London, for example, being able to afford food, clothes, and shelter does not make you rich. To them, you're simply surviving. If you want to be truly wealthy in London, you might have to hire a housekeeper, buy a horse, and have a personal Pilates instructor. But to the Awa or the Yanomami tribes, money doesn't even exist. They produce only the necessary, and if they have a surplus, they will trade with other tribes. I guess the fact that poor countries are all located closer to the equator line is not just a simple historical coincidence. If we're happy enough finding a few bucks we forgot about in our pockets, just imagine stumbling across $13 million in a place you'd never expect. That's exactly what happened to a group of diamond miners working in the Namibian desert. In 2008, they found this incredible treasure inside a shipwreck that happened over 500 years ago, and the story behind this abandoned vessel is packed with mysteries. It all started back in 1533, when the Portuguese built this special trading ship. This model was believed to be a part of a newer class of vessels that were bigger, more efficient, and tougher than the ones that came before. Portugal really needed that, since they were dominating trade all over the seas at the time. So the main purpose of this ship was to support those long-distance expeditions during this super prosperous era. On March 7th, the Portuguese decided to test their impressive new ship, and on that fresh spring day, big vessels sailed down the Tagus River and out into the Atlantic, with flags flying and colorful fabrics draping from their tall masts. Off they went, leaving Lisbon, the capital of Portugal, and heading for Western India. At least, that's what researchers think, since this was a pretty common route for them back then. Most of the time, the Portuguese were after spices. In the early 1500s, it was pretty hard to find things like cinnamon, ginger, cloves, black pepper, and turmeric in Europe, so they had to go to India for them. Unfortunately, one of the ships never made it to its final destination. In fact, to the despair of the Portuguese court, this vessel completely vanished, leaving no sign of a shipwreck. And none of the roughly 300 people on board were ever found. Could they have strayed so far off course that they ended up in the Americas or on some island along the way? Well, anything was possible, and the ship, along with the mystery of its disappearance, became legendary. Fast forward over 500 years to 2008. Diamond miners were doing their thing on a coast near Oranienburg when they started finding some strange stuff while digging, like pieces of metal, wood, and even odd objects that looked like bronze pipes. That was definitely strange, so they called an archaeologist to figure out what was going on. When the archaeologist arrived, he noticed all sorts of strange bits and old pieces scattered around. Little by little, he began to identify those things. First, elephant tusks, then a 500-year-old artillery piece. All of a sudden, it hit him. This was definitely a shipwreck, but what the archaeologist didn't realize at the time was that this shipwreck turned out to be one of the most significant ever found. Back then, it wasn't easy at all to convince the mining company that archaeologists had to keep exploring the site. But thankfully, they managed to, because on the 6th day of searching, they spotted a treasure. And they literally filled their hats with over a 25-pound mixture of Spanish and Portuguese gold coins. Turns out, this old abandoned ship was loaded with gold, tin, ivory tusks, and over 40,000 pounds of copper ingots when it met its watery and tragic end. In fact, specialists believe that the copper ingots played a key role in keeping the wreck so well preserved. The first reason is kind of obvious. The copper ingots weighing everything down, keeping the shipwreck remnants at the bottom of the ocean. And that was great, as 5 centuries of storms and waves would have washed everything away. But copper ingots were also important for another reason. Fish and other sea creatures might feast on wood, jute sacks, and leather shoes. But copper really ruins their appetite, which means a lot of stuff survived those 500 years at the bottom of the sea that it really shouldn't have. So yeah, against all odds, the treasure was preserved and in excellent condition. The gold looked shiny and intact. While it's impossible to prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that they had just found the legendary Portuguese vessel, all the evidence points to the fact that, yes, they did. One piece of evidence comes from an old Portuguese book that says that between 1525 and 1600, 21 ships were lost on the way to India, and one of them actually sank somewhere near Namibia, getting lost on the turn of the Cape of Good Hope. Bingo! From that point on, experts have been going over the wreckage, measuring, photographing, and scanning the site millimeter by millimeter with a high-tech three-dimensional laser scanner. Their goal was to figure out what happened to this ship, or at least get closer to the truth. The first question they had to answer was, why was this ship so close to the coast of Namibia? We're talking about great sailors who probably knew that that stretch of coast was famous for its storms and fog. What happened then? It seems that 4 months or so after its grand departure from Lisbon, the fleet was struck and scattered by a huge storm. So the most likely explanation is that the combination of bad weather and heavy cargo forced the captain to run the ship aground on purpose. According to one theory, he dropped the front anchors and slowly beached the ship. Then it hit an underwater rock in the surf, rolled over in the big waves, and all attempts to free it failed. It began to break apart, starting with the upper structure. At that point, the treasure chest fell out of the captain's cabin and sank down to the seabed. It eventually got crushed and pinned down, but it was also protected by a big piece of the ship's side that broke off when the hull fell apart. Okay, but what about the people on board? Winter storms along the Namibian coast can be brutal, with winds over 80 miles an hour and huge waves, making it nearly impossible to get ashore. But if the storm calmed down at some point, it is possible that the shipwreck had survivors. I mean, some human toe bones were indeed found, suggesting at least one person didn't make it. But these were the only human remains that were recovered. There weren't many personal belongings found either, which leads archaeologists to think that most people on board likely made it to land despite the ship breaking apart. But we can't really say this was a happy ending. Yes, most of them might have survived the shipwreck, but they ended up in one of the harshest places on Earth. An empty stretch of sand and scrub for hundreds of miles. It was winter, so they were cold, wet, and exhausted, with no hope of rescue. Nobody knew they were alive or where to find them. Plus, no ships were likely to pass by, since they were far off the usual routes. Going back to Portugal seemed impossible. After the first round of exploration, researchers found that the ship's remains were scattered across 3 large sections along the coast of Namibia. In the end, more than 40 tons of cargo were recovered from the site, and thousands of different artifacts were found and cataloged, including lead, tin, textiles, and even some astronomical instruments. So, you might be asking, who got the gold? I'll just say that it didn't go to the miners or the archaeologists. According to the researchers involved, every single coin was handed over to the Namibian government. After all, that is the usual procedure for random ships found on the beach. But this case wasn't that simple, as there is an exception to this rule. If the ship found is a state ship, the country that owns it has the right to receive the treasure. In other words, everything they found inside this old abandoned vessel actually belonged to Portugal, no matter that it all happened ages ago. But the Portuguese leaders apparently allowed Namibia to take the lot.